Lucille. Thank you very much. We're joining you from our studio here in The Hague, the FMO studio. And thank you to everyone for joining our lab debate today, where we're going to be speaking on the topic of using blended finance to mobilize capital for the 1.8 trillion adaptation opportunity and how partnerships can be created to mobilize this investment. Today, I am joined in the studio by David Kuiper on my left from FMO, who's going to be speaking about this from a fund manager's perspective. We're going to be speaking also to Tigeri Munzenza, who is speaking from SMV and from the DFCD, and he's going to be joining us remotely from Kenya. And we have Reef, who's going to be joining us from Endo Bamboo, and he's going to be speaking about how he works with the DFCD fund. Now, before we move to the panel discussion, I would just like to show you a very short video just to give you an overview of the DFCD program, which has been cited as a good example of this partnership and blended finance model in practice. So if you could please show the video.
Climate change is one of the biggest challenges we face today. It is already affecting people and nature across the globe, with developing countries being most impacted. There is an urgent need for investment to enable vulnerable communities and ecosystems to adapt to climate change. Yet funding is in short supply. The government of the Netherlands has committed to addressing this need by making 160 million euros available through the Dutch Fund for Climate and Development, known as the DFCD. Managed by a pioneering consortium of FMO, Climate Fund Managers, SNV and WWF, the DFCD will work with the private sector to catalyse over 500 million euros in additional funding for bankable projects across the world. These projects will boost the health of fresh water, forest, agricultural and ocean ecosystems, and improve water management. Critically, the DFCD will help vulnerable communities to adapt, drive sustainable development, and strengthen global efforts to tackle climate change. The fund is ready to build new partnerships. So join us in our mission to create a more resilient future.
Thank you very much, and I hope that you've got an overview of the DFCD program and how important this is. Now, I'd just like to move to our first panelist on my left, to David. David, we all know that climate change poses an unprecedented threat to humanity, and the developing world is most at risk. It's clear that we really need funding for climate adaptation. How do you think this investment can be mobilized?
Well, it certainly can not be just mobilized through public finance alone. It's clear that these challenges are unprecedented, they're huge, and we need to make use of the large availability of private finance currently out in the world to help finance these investments. The DFCD is, as you've seen in this video, an example of a public-private partnership that I think is a key ingredient in mobilizing this. And public-private partnerships can take place in very many ways. But from a financing point of view, one very important part is what we call blended finance. So you use a dollop of public money to actually mobilize and catalyze private finance and help persuade investors by mitigating what we call the pioneer risks, the first risks of moving into a pioneering sector or pioneering geography. You try to mitigate those pioneering risks and help investors persuade to move their investments into impactful and sustainable investments. And that is what the DFCD is trying to do, but not just in the finance way, as we see later on also with the examples of Reef and Tigeri. So public-private partnerships are really key.
Now, we've seen in the video, and you've mentioned, what a great example this has been of public-private partnerships. Can you explain what has been achieved so far?
Yeah, what has been achieved so far, and we're basically 18 months since the launch of the DFCD, and we right now have 31 projects live in our 3 facilities, and that has been an achievement that we're actually quite proud of, especially in the context of the pandemic, of course, and what we really have shown with this is that project origination, together with the help of large financiers such as FMO, the Dutch Development Bank, and climate fund managers, can actually turn opportunities, local opportunities, into bankable deals. 31 projects live is something that we are quite proud of.
And I've also heard that in this program that there's a particular landscape approach that is applied. Can you give a bit of a reason and explanation as to why you look at it through this lens?
Yeah, and that's a good word, actually, a lens. The landscape lens is actually in itself quite a simple idea. We all live in a landscape, whether we live in a city or in a rural area, we all live in a landscape in which economic, social and environmental interests compete with each other. How can you make sure that there is no competition between these interests, but that there is actually a mutually reinforcing process being set up? And with the landscape approach, we try to bring these stakeholders together so that in every landscape, just a geographical landscape, economic, social, and environmental interests are actually taken into account and into the design of a project in such a way that these are mutually reinforcing and provide opportunities for growth and for coherence and a further resilience of that landscape. Reef later in this session will bring some good examples on how that works.
Fantastic. And at the Adaptation Summit, Mark Rutte mentioned about this being a groundbreaking project ahead of the trend. Can you give an explanation as to why that is the case? Yeah,
Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, mentioned this to actually highlight the fact that by starting this kind of organized consortium, we bring together the power, expertise, and network of local NGOs and connect this to the global firepower of finance. FMO and climate fund managers being in the forefront of that. But we also hope that with our role in this consortium at the later stage, when we have a lot more projects live in the pipeline and a lot more funders that are interested in this, that in a later stage, other impact investors and also commercial investors and large institutional investors are able to actually put their investments in projects that are highly relevant to combat climate change and are highly relevant to increase the resilience of communities and economies. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, in this groundbreaking project, what do you think have been the lessons learned so far that can inform other programs like this going forward? Well, one big lesson learned, and we kind of knew this was coming, this is also why we set up the DFCD, but one big point of attention is the dimension of time. It takes time to do this. It takes time to get a deal, or actually to select an opportunity within a landscape, turn it into a deal, and then connect it to the pipeline of an organization such as FMO and CFM. And by bringing this all together, we want to speed up the process, but at the same time, we also really want to make sure that there's quality, that the environmental, social, and governance aspects to every opportunity are actually put core and central to the design of the project, so that an investor won't face a lot of ESG issue once it gets in. No, these environmental, social, and governance aspects are core to the design of our projects. And it takes time to set that up. But one good way to overcome that is actually by trying to have a lot of projects and a lot of ideas online and make sure that the good ones actually become bankable.
And what do you think has been your biggest challenge so far?
It's again this aspect of time. Yeah. It's really mobilizing. It's not mobilizing finance so much at this stage. It's really mobilizing expertise, mobilizing the right sort of local expertise that can help us spot the opportunities and seize opportunities. It's not so much about creating opportunities. The opportunities are there. It's about seizing these opportunities. And that takes time, and that takes a lot of partnership effort, if I may say so. But with this setup, we really hope to be able to manage that.
Sounds amazing, David. It's really an exciting project, and we hope to see many like this going forward. Now we will be moving to Tigeri Muzenza, who should be joining us from Kenya. Hi, Tigeri, I can see you there. I saw you had a few connection issues. Great that you're here. So Tigeri, you are the DFCD investment manager in Kenya. What are the climate challenges that you see locally?
Good morning, Sinead, and good morning to all our guests. In Africa, as well as in Kenya, we have significant climate change challenges that we are facing. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, East Africa is expected to face more flood events. And in West Africa and Southern Africa, we are likely to face more drought events. And when we look at this, including in Kenya, this will lead to increasing spread of vector-borne diseases, rising sea levels, hotter and drier conditions, possibly leading to desertification, as well as a negative impact on agricultural production. It is likely expected to continue to decline. In short, that's the implication. Thanks.
So David has already brought in this whole idea of a landscape lens and a landscape perspective. Yeah. How are you applying this lens at a local level?
At a local level, we have what we call south of Kenya, north of Tanzania, SOCNOT as an acronym. This is an area that straddles the border between Tanzania and Kenya, ranging from the iconic Masai Maras in Kenya, as well as the same Masai Mara in Tanzania, and well-renowned conservancies such as the Serengeti, the Amboseli, running all the way down to the southern part of Kenya and Tanzania, with Taita Taveta. These are areas that are defined as arid and semi-arid, yet they're very important to the economy of both Tanzania and Kenya because they generate close to $3 billion of revenue in every year. And they've got UNESCO World Heritage Sites as well. So this is the area that we've identified as in need of intervention by the DFCD.
So when you are looking with companies to deal with the challenges you see locally, what are the characteristics you look for in projects?
Exactly. So we are looking for companies. Firstly, they have to be within the defined landscape, which is the SOCNOT area. They either are located in that area or their impact or their activity elsewhere could have an impact on the SOCNOT landscape. And we would expect that whatever activity they want to get into, if they are greenfield, that is if they're new, or if they're already existing, whatever expansion they want to get into should have a climate change angle. In this case, we are focusing more on climate change adaptation. What is this entity or activity expected to bring as a systems change in light of the pending or already happened climate change? How do they adapt? How do they build resilience into the activities, into the communities within which they are located? And how can they ensure sustainability of the operations of the company as well as the community in which they exist? We look at companies that have potential to become viable. They may not be today, but they should become viable because the aim is to reduce dependence of companies on donor money to become self-sustaining and continue to deliver the environmental impacts that are expected. We also expect them to have revenues of up to maybe minimum 6 million euro, balance sheets of 5 million euro going upwards, because then they can sustain the debt if it is coming, or the investment in terms of equity if it is delivered by one of our financing partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tigeri. Can you give an example of maybe some companies that you're working with in Kenya at the moment?
Sure. We are working in sectors such as agriculture, agro-processing, the water, sanitation and health, as well as energy for productive use. In this respect, we have already come across projects that we have worked on and gotten approved in agriculture, a one-stop shop company that provides agricultural inputs. And these are climate-smart agricultural inputs. That is from seed, which is climate change resistant, pest resistant, to energy systems that help entities move from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy like solar and wind. They also provide, in terms of agricultural land, support in terms of, say, greenhouses, biogas and related inputs. On the other side of water, sanitation and health, we have already gotten approval for a project that is going to help provide water to communities, to consumers, as well as to agricultural activities. In Kenya, in the area we are operating, it's arid and semi-arid, and most water resources, especially boreholes, have got high levels of salinity. And one of the companies that we have already gotten approval for is going to be investing in desalinating borehole water so that it can be potable and healthy and be used both in domestic and for agricultural purposes. And lastly, we also have an operation which is into environmental protection, environmental cleaning, in the sense that they provide services to do wastewater and sewage treatment works that not only clean the environment and make the sewage sludge sterile. They also will be providing biogas from there. They will also be providing briquettes and pellets, as well as organic fertilizer, which is very much needed in agriculture and good for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tigeri. I think you've touched on my last question, which was going to be on the impact on local communities. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that one?
Yes. We are looking forward to achieving significant results in as far as sustainable intensification of agriculture is concerned, as far as higher farmer incomes and increased use of renewable energy, while converting also waste to energy. Some of the impacts will lead to about 12.5 million people being provided with clean, healthy drinking water, about 100,000 hectares of farmland that will be sustainably managed, in addition to reducing carbon emissions by close to 40 million tons of carbon dioxide emitted greenhouse gases. Lastly, we also hope to mobilize private finance to support the activities that are going to be identified and supported by DFCD. Thank you.
Tigeri, thank you so much. It was great to hear about what is expected to be achieved with this project. And thank you for giving us this view from on the ground. We're now going to move to Reef from Indobamboo, and he's going to give us the perspective from a company that's actually working with the DFCD program. And you're joining us from Flores, I believe, in Indonesia. Hello, Reef. Welcome.
Good evening from Indonesia.
Good evening from The Hague. Good afternoon from The Hague. So, Reef, your company Indobamboo is working with the DFCD, as mentioned. And can you give a brief introduction to your company? And I understand that bamboo has been called a magical plant, so I'd be interested to get more about that also.
Yeah, thank you, Sinead. So Indobamboo was really an experiment of the Environmental Bamboo Foundation working with the government to create a people-first, people-public-private partnership to really work in East Indonesia to restore degraded lands with bamboo agroforestry systems and create a village-level institution and a village-level value addition factory that would allow for communities to get the opportunity to get that additional livelihood from value addition at the village level, and then to sell to Indobamboo, our company, which would then create products that we would sell around the world. And so this key unlocking of the potential of farmers to become climate change champions by really ensuring their livelihood and them making enough money so that they can send their kids to school and help the world tackle climate change.
And can you explain a little more about how bamboo is helping tackle climate change, the challenges?
Yeah, so bamboo is this giant grass, and it's bamboo agroforestry systems can absorb or sequester 50 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. And the rhizomic network and the roots can absorb just in a month of the rainy season 5,000 liters of water. So they say, when you plant a bamboo, you're planting water. And in terms of the landscape, as David was talking about, if we can plant many of these kind of water holding tanks of the topsoil, we reactivate these landscapes and bring back the forests of the past so that these landscapes can thrive ecologically, but also socially and economically.
Fantastic. And in terms of your involvement with the DFCD program, what support are you receiving? What support is your company receiving?
Yeah, so I think there's three critical things that the DFCD is really helping us to sequence and unlock. Firstly is a grant to really help capacity building with these communities that we are working with, working with women, working with the elderly, even working with the youth to bring them to the forest, to activate them in a forestry management system and a whole forest to factory integrated model. And, taking that capacity building and then giving the right technical assistance, we then need a catalytic loan, right, that the DFCD is giving very competitive debt that really helps to activate and attract a lot of private sector investors who would maybe be a little bit more hesitant to invest if there wasn't this amazing blended finance package put together by the DFCD.
Now, before I move to the next question, I just would like to draw the audience attention to the chat function. So if you've any questions, we'll be moving to audience questions after this speaker. So please feel free to put any questions you may have into the chat, and we will deal with those in a few minutes. So Reef, coming back again to this landscape approach, which has been a theme throughout this discussion, how do you apply this in your projects?
Yeah, so for us, I think the landscape is human. The landscape is the physical living trees, flora and fauna, and it's also the economic systems that all work together in an interconnected way. And understanding the interplay of these social, ecological, and economic systems is quite a challenge in how to, for example, take degraded lands that then degrades the communities, that then degrades the economies, and flip that and take things like the brain drain, where the smart of the communities are running away to the cities and attract them back and say there's an amazing opportunity here with your land that is now sleeping, but we can reactivate it, and bringing these partnerships back in all three aspects of the landscape to really create this restoration economy vision that we are pushing for.
Can you give an idea of what you have achieved so far with the DFCD and what your vision is for the future?
Yeah, thank you. So we've, the Environmental Bamboo Foundation and Indo Bamboo have been in Flores, Indonesia for the last 10 years, really working with the local communities to train them and to enroll them into the understanding of this restoration economy and how, when we create this value addition, we can have these different generations, these different layers of the landscape and different partners who are a little bit siloed and maybe a little bit not so equitable, to work together in a good way. And now we see women, wives and husbands working together in an equitable way, managing forests and supplying to Indo Bamboo. And I think that's probably the most exciting thing that we see is really the people activated. And Indo Bamboo is a strategic partner of the 1,000 Bamboo Village program, which plans to restore 2 million hectares of degraded land around Indonesia and create a sequestration potential of 100 megatons per annum, which is an amazing opportunity. And this is the magic of forests, that especially when you put this giant grass, bamboo, to help bring back the water and really help to activate the soil and activate the water that becomes the foundation for the productivity of landscapes, that socially and economically we can all benefit from.
Thank you very much. We've seen some lovely pictures of the project just showing as you were speaking. And you've touched also on this point, the impact at the local level. And what impact have you seen in terms of their climate resilience?
Yeah, so, forests are amazing when it comes to climate adaptation, and especially bamboo-based agroforestry systems. When the large rains come in the rainy season, if the bamboo can suck up like a sponge the runoff and stop floods and stop erosion and stop landslides. And when you come to the other side, to the dry season, and the whole landscape dries out, these same root systems, we call it a knitted hydrology of short roots, medium roots, and deep root species, hold that water and hold that soil to keep the systems thriving. And as climate change makes longer dry seasons and hits harder with storms and rain, this buffer capacity really increases the resilience for the communities living in the rural parts of the world, all across the tropical belt of the globe.
Thank you very much, Reef. And to our panelists for giving us a great overview and great examples of the DFCD program in practice and of how blended finance is such a big part of that. Now, I am going to move over to the audient questions. I've seen a few coming in. Let me see. I think this one might be for you, David, with maybe Tigeri. If anyone has any input, please let me know. So what kind of co-investor are you looking for?
Well, for the entire DFCD, there are always, in the various facilities, we need different kinds of investment. But what is most important is, of course, at this stage, the public investment that we need. The co-investor who's a public organization, such as the European Commission or the Dutch government, as the Dutch government has set this entire facility up. That's the kind of co-investment that we would like to see in the first place, the co-investment for impact. One of our consortium partner climate fund managers is already very successful in mobilizing additional co-investment from institutional investors, large impact investors, and the like. So that's really how we want to move from the public investment that is that helps to mitigate the risks, that helps the origination facility, to institutional and impact investors that come in once deals come online. And hopefully in the future, we will see a lot of commercial investors as well that are willing to put money into the projects that have come out of the Dutch Fund for Climate and Development.
And Tigeri, do you have any view on this from at a local level?
At the early stage, when a company is setting up, they face challenges where sponsors themselves don't have enough finance. So we are looking at the early stage where we are providing a grant to help support early stage activities. We can have partners that are willing to provide grants with us. We are not exclusive. So at the early stage, that's the first stage where we can have co-investors providing grants to support those catalytic activities the company wants to do. Once they graduate from the origination facility, they now are eligible for commercial finance. And where FMO, for instance, our financing partner is giving a loan, minimum, say, 1 million euro, maximum 10 million euro. If a client wants more than 10 million euro, FMO has much capacity to look at these financing partners and mobilize additional funding. And indeed, that's one of the key aspects of the DFCD financing partner, to mobilize third-party, private and public funding. Just like David indicated, we are quite keen to have impact investors, venture capitalists, where they fit and see the concept in line with what they want to achieve. So yes, we are comfortable with that. At a working capital level, at the local, we also have commercial banks that then provide working capital finance to these entities that would have de-risked and made their investments more attractive to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question is, what are your goals for attracting private capital? So, David, can I start with you on this?
Yes, you can. It really, the goals for the DFCD set as such for this facility is, we feel we are able that with this facility and within the given time frame that we have, we should be able to attract over $1 billion in terms of additional finance. But of course, that $1 billion for us is, well, I would say just a start, not so much for our facility, but we hope that by showing that a facility like this is able to attract such amount of additional finance, more facilities will start. That we provide an example for others in this space to deploy our approach or variants on our approach that do exactly that also, bringing project origination far closer to the actual investment process for impact institutional and commercial investors. So for ourselves, we set the goal of 1 billion, but I think for climate adaptation finance, the goals are a lot bigger.
Fantastic. Now, another question we have is on additionality. So the DFCD only invests if there's additionality. What does this mean in practice? Tigeri, do you have any thoughts on this, or?
Thanks, Jeanette. So you find in Africa and, of course, other developing regions, developing countries outside Africa, we have a challenge of tenor in terms of the length of the loan that an entity can get. In most countries, commercial banks cannot give more than 5-year money. And they also don't support early stage companies. So our additionality as DFCD comes right at the beginning, where we are looking at a company wanting to do environmental impact assessment, pre-feasibility studies and the like. There are no commercial financiers that can provide funding for that. The DFCD comes in with a grant. That's an additionality. When you go to the financing part, most banks cannot provide more than 5 years of a loan. Maybe they provide you 5 years and then renewable, but that's a cost. We have our financing partners providing up to 8 years, including a grace period. So that's again an additionality that comes with the DFCD. And lastly, not many financiers come along with a finance package together with technical assistance. Whereas the DFCD, over and above the grant money, and in addition to the loan that you will get, the DFCD provides technical assistance where such is required. And we think that really supports entities to scale up and be able to get established. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tigeri. And I see another one coming in, which is, how does the fund monitor its impact over time? Well, I guess on this question of impact, maybe Reef, you could give an idea of how you measure impact in your project?
Absolutely, thank you, Sinead. You know, there's key things that we look at. Of course, there's the people, and there's you know, these villages, and then we have these degraded lands, and really, so the amount of hectares of degraded land restored is a very obvious metrics for measuring our impact. And also the communities and the people, and how many communities have been activated to seeing and believing and enrolling that their lands are their future, and creating this opportunity of this bamboo village model with their landscapes. And I think from there, you know, there's so many metrics from the adaptation side as well as the mitigation side, which are very exciting.
Thank you very much. Do any of the other panelists have anything to add on this for now? So I think on that note, we are about to reach the end of this session. And I would like to hand over to our panelists for any final remarks that they may have. David, can I just start with you? Is there anything you'd like to add now that hasn't been mentioned?
Well, what may not have been mentioned yet, but it's typical subject for a final remark, is really that we hope we are contagious, in the sense that our experience, our lessons learned, the way we approach these challenges, that they attract the attention of others, and that we can, with that, help inspire other kinds of facilities like this to come up. That puts a bit of a burden on us, of course, because it means we also need to put a lot of effort in disseminating our story. It means that we also clearly need to be very clear about monitoring our success and our failures, in order for that to have other facilities come up. In the first place, in the area of climate adaptation finance, I think in particular in that area where we are active in sustainable land use around the landscape, it's perfect to kind of pioneer with this approach. But I think our lessons learned are also relevant for the entire spectrum of development finance. Think about hitherto unexplored sectors such as in human development, education, and health. How can you also try to help connect and mobilize private finance interest investors into these sectors? And our experience hopefully can also learn there, can teach us lessons there. So that is basically my main hope, that we're able to well, basically be able to copy ourselves.
And on that inspiring note, we move to Tigeri. Tigeri, do you have any last remarks to make?
Yeah, just maybe to ride on David's issue on lessons learned, and where we've come from so far with the DFCD. Not everything may not be as it looks or as it appears. I will just put it like that. So we call upon potential investors to come early with their concepts, not when they already need the money. But as you are developing it, you want input, you want to see how eligible it will be, how it will fit within the DFCD. All these things take time. You may then realize there is a weakness in corporate governance, issues to do with laws that affect your business, registration, certification, and so on. That may then further delay your investment. So we call upon potential investors to come early and have discussions with us, and then we'll see what else needs to be done and where can we fit in our intervention so that come take off, the business can take off easily with all the right pieces of the puzzle put in place properly. That's the least I can add. Thank you.
And last but not least, Reef, any final remarks from your side?
Thank you, Sinead. Yeah, maybe just to firstly say thank you very much to all that have helped to bring the 1,000 Bamboo Village program and the Bamboo Village initiative to this amazing platform. And, you know, the Bamboo Village initiative is now trying to seed itself around the world, and we're looking for partners. So please contact and reach out to the Environmental Bamboo Foundation and Indo Bamboo. We're looking for partners. Let's do it together. Thank you.
And what a great note to end on. We hope that you've all learned more about blended finance as an approach to meeting the Climate Finance Adaptation Challenge, and that you've learned more about the DFCD programme. I want to thank the audience for joining us today. And I also just want to say, if anybody has any questions or would like more information about this, this programme, please visit the DFCD.com. So again, to thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to pass you back to the EDD studio.
Thank you, Sinead. And this was a very green session. I mean, green because we were in nature. We were right in the middle of the bamboo. Even in Den Haag, you were in the bamboo field. So it was really inspiring. And this bamboo village experience is really something that is showing that you do a project for climate adaptation, but it also very much serves the local communities, the women, the decent work, and bring much more than just climate adaptation. It's also contribute to the wider development and the wider challenge that we have in many countries. So fascinating example, fascinating and very powerful. And what I take really out of it is, because we talk already in the high-level session about concessional loan, about blending, we see the reality here taking effect with DFCD. 160 million invested will deliver more than 500 million. And even you were saying you have the goal of reaching 1 billion. So this has really a powerful effect, because if we want to reach the trillions, which we say initially in the high-level panel, I mean, we need this sort of powerful instrument in there. But what was also very interesting is the point made, I think, by Reef and Tigere about the capacity building element, which is also part of the blending. So just not money, just like this, but you need to accompany the money with really the expertise and building capacity, so that you know how you develop the business, you know how you make it relevant also for climate, but for the business and for the viability of the business model, because we don't want this project then after 2 years to just collapse. We want them to remain sustainable. So it needs some to be accompanied. And this is what is very powerful about this fund, this combination really. And in addition, of course, you have the NGO on board, which is quite unique, I have to say. Probably there are other examples, but I didn't know any others before. I think this is very, very, very good to have that, because the challenge, and that's one of the challenges we already talked about in the first session, is to get the pipeline of projects and to seize them. So you are saying projects are there, but we just need to seize the opportunity. And by having WWF, the local partner, they can really help with this identification of the pipeline. So it's all really tackle the challenge, and it's all building into something that is much more powerful of working together, because it's the how we work together. It's, as we see already this morning, it's very important. So very inspiring project with an impact, and also some challenges or lessons learned. I like when you say that it takes time. Yeah, this Rome hasn't been built in a day. So to have this kind of project, you really need to develop and so on, and it takes time. And we'd like them to be more speeded up, because of course the challenge is there, and we say this is the urgency. So more thinking, more work needs to be done between the public authority development and to see how these things can be speed up. Now it's true these are pretty new. I mean, you say it's 18 months, so it's clear that in the beginning you just have to get used to a lot of new process, new way of doing things. So hopefully this work will be speed up, but it's very important because it's true that we have a level of urgency. So we cannot allow ourselves to wait for years before really having this project taking shape. So very important. Also monitoring success and also mobilizing further. I really like the fact that you don't have any sort of intellectual property right or copyright on your project and you're like saying, go ahead and we need more facility like this. This is one example, but it needs to sort of further grow everywhere because there's a lot of potential and many countries to cover. So very nice thinking, very nice session. Thanks a lot. And I will end with something that Sinead shared with me, a challenge also to all of you who are listening, a call for more projects. So if you have a project that is not yet identified, we talk about the difficulty to identify project, and that you would like to bring up into the fund, especially in Uganda, Kenya and Bangladesh, they are making a challenge, a call for proposal, and if you are a winner, basically you could go to the COP26 and participate in there. So you have a nice thing to contribute and to say over there to the higher political level. So thanks a lot to all the speakers coming up with your experience and this fantastic green trip that we had here in Brussels. And I wish you all the best with the continuation of the fund, very inspiring, and have a good rest of the day. Thanks a lot. We will be back in a few moments. We are a little bit in advance, so we will have a short break, 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll be back with the next session, which will be together with the European Association of the Development Finance Institution, which is also a member here of FMO, and SNV are a member of it, and we'll see how they overall fit this dimension into the whole strategy throughout Europe. So stay with us, just a couple of moments, and we'll be back.